My father slid a folder across his desk and asked me to do something that would destroy my life. He said it the way you'd ask someone to pass the salt. Casual. Expected. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just picked up that folder with trembling hands and whispered, I need 24 hours to think about it. He nodded, satisfied. He thought he was looking at a scared daughter trying to find courage. He had no idea he was looking at the person who was about to take everything he owned. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how I got to that moment. How 26 years of being invisible turned me into the most dangerous person in the room. My name is Flora Buchanan, and this is the story of how my family tried to use me as a human shield, and how I turned their weapon into my victory. It started with a simple question I should have asked years ago. Why me? For as long as I can remember, I was the spare part in my family. The backup generator you keep in the basement and forget exists until the power goes out. While I sat in my freezing 400-square-foot studio apartment eating canned beans and studying for certifications under a blanket to save on heating bills, my sister Sasha was living like royalty. And I mean that literally. I remember scrolling through Instagram last winter. There was Sasha at a 5-star wellness retreat in Bali. The caption read company research trip with a sunset emoji. I knew for a fact her boutique consulting firm had exactly 0 clients. The company existed only on paper and in her imagination. But my parents loved that post. My mother commented, so proud of my visionary girl. They funded that trip. They funded the Audi she crashed 3 months later. They funded the downtown loft she rented. They poured every dollar they had into keeping Sasha inflated, terrified that if they stopped pumping money in, she'd collapse. And me? To Malcolm and Miranda Buchanan, I was a data entry clerk. A quiet, unambitious disappointment who filed papers for $18 an hour. That was the story I let them believe. The truth? I'm a senior forensic auditor for one of the most aggressive litigation firms in the state. My job isn't typing numbers into spreadsheets. It's hunting them. I track down hidden assets for high-stakes divorce cases and corporate bankruptcy fraud. I find the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the phantom employees collecting paychecks that don't exist. I'm a shark disguised in a beige cardigan. My parents didn't know this because they never asked. In 5 years, not once had they said, Flora, what do you actually do at work? Not once had they asked about my day, my goals, my life. It used to hurt. But the night my father slid that folder across his desk, I realized their ignorance had become my greatest weapon. So what was in that folder? Tax fraud. Embezzlement. Serious federal crimes that carried real prison time. Pages and pages of evidence. Bank records. Forged documents. Investor statements. None of it was mine. All of it was Sasha's. My perfect sister sat on the sofa behind me, crying fake tears into a handkerchief while my mother patted her back and made soothing sounds. They needed someone to take the fall. Someone expendable. Someone nobody would miss. They needed a scapegoat so Sasha could marry into the wealthy Harrington family next month with a clean record. 2 years in minimum security won't kill you, Flora, my father said, not even looking at me. You're used to struggling. Nobody looks at you anyway. We'll pay you when you get out. My mother nodded along. It's just 2 years. Sasha has her whole future ahead of her. This marriage is important. You understand. I sat there, letting my hands shake just enough to make them think I was breaking down. Just enough to make them believe I was considering it. 24 hours, I whispered. I need to think. Fine, my father said. But this doesn't leave this room. And Flora? Don't do anything stupid. This is family business. I grabbed my purse and walked out of that house. I got in my car, drove exactly 2 blocks, pulled over, and that's when I started laughing. Not happy laughter. The kind that comes when something inside you breaks and reassembles into something sharper. Something clearer. For years, I'd wondered why they treated me like this. Why they seemed to hate me. Why I was always the afterthought, the forgotten one, the disappointment. But sitting there in my car, watching the rain hit the windshield, I finally understood. It wasn't hate. It was economics. To my parents, success is a finite resource. A pie with only so many slices. They genuinely believed that if they gave any support, attention, or love to me, they were stealing it from Sasha. For Sasha to be the star, there had to be darkness around her to make her shine brighter. I was the darkness. The void. The insurance policy they kept in the basement, gathering dust, waiting for the day the star burned out. And that day had finally come. Sasha had stolen money. Lied to investors. Defrauded the government. The star was falling. So they went to the basement, dusted me off, and told me it was time to serve my purpose. Step into the fire so she wouldn't get burned. They thought I was weak because I was quiet. Because I never fought back. Because I always did what they asked. They didn't realize that while they were building a house of cards for my sister, I was learning how to blow houses down. I wiped my eyes. Started the car. I wasn't going home to cry. I was going to work. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner. The neon sign buzzed overhead like a dying insect. I didn't go inside. I didn't want coffee. I wanted the truth. I pulled out my laptop, hands still shaking from adrenaline. I needed to know exactly what I was walking into. I needed to know if this tax fraud was new or if the rot went deeper. In my line of work, we have a saying, follow the silence. The things people don't talk about are usually where the money is hidden. And my parents had been very silent about my finances for years. They never asked why I drove a 10-year-old Honda. Never asked why I still rented instead of buying. Never asked how I was making ends meet on $18 an hour. I connected to my phone's hotspot and pulled up the credit bureau portal. I wasn't hacking. Just doing what any responsible adult does, checking my own credit report. I typed in my social security number, my date of birth, answered the security questions. Hit enter. The screen loaded. I stopped breathing. I expected to see maybe some student loans. My car payment. Rent history. Nothing crazy. Instead, I was staring at a financial crime scene. My credit score was in the low 500s. Destroyed. But it was the open accounts tab that made my stomach flip. 3 credit cards I'd never opened. All maxed out. Combined balance, $45,000. A business loan for Sash Consulting LLC, Sasha's failed fashion startup from 5 years ago. Principal amount, $50,000. Status, default. And there were more. Store credit cards. A personal loan. All in my name. All delinquent. I clicked on the account details, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. The recovery email address for every single fraudulent account, malcolm.buchanan@gmail.com. My father's email. I sat back against the headrest. The air left my lungs in one long, shaky breath. They hadn't just asked me to take the fall tonight. They had been stealing my identity for 5 years. Since I was 21 years old. Since I was struggling to pay for textbooks and eating toast for dinner because that's all I could afford. While I was choosing between groceries and heat, my father was opening credit cards in my name to fund Sasha's vanity projects. When they told me they couldn't help with my rent, they were actively ruining my credit to keep her afloat. The realization washed over me like ice water. I wasn't a daughter to them. I wasn't even a person. I was a resource. A line of credit to be maxed out and discarded. They had been drowning me for years so Sasha could keep her head above water. I looked down at my hands. They had stopped shaking. Strange, isn't it? You'd think finding out your parents are criminals who've been destroying your life would break you. You'd think you'd cry. I didn't cry. The tears evaporated. Replaced by clarity so sharp it felt like a blade. That emotional bond I'd been clinging to, that desperate, pathetic hope that if I just sacrificed enough, stayed quiet enough, helped enough, they would finally see me and love me, it snapped. Gone. I felt lighter. Clearer. Dangerous. I wasn't the scared girl in the study anymore. I was the auditor. and I had just found the discrepancy that was going to bring the whole operation down. I closed the laptop. If they wanted me to own their crimes, fine. I was going to own everything else too. I didn't go home that night. I went to my war room, a 24-hour co-working space I used for freelance consulting work. The kind of place where nobody asks questions and the coffee is terrible but strong. I didn't sleep. I audited. I pulled up the corporate filings for Sash Consulting. Because my social security number was listed as the guarantor on the business loan, I had full legal access to everything. Bank statements, transaction records, tax documents, all of it. I downloaded 5 years of records and started building the flowchart. What I found wasn't just incompetence or bad business decisions. It was systematic looting. Sasha had raised $250,000 from angel investors, mostly friends and associates of the Harrington family, promising a revolutionary fashion app that would change the industry. The pitch deck was impressive, professional, completely fictional. The money hit the business account in 3 separate deposits over 6 months, and it disappeared just as fast. I traced every single transfer. $10,000 to a luxury travel agency for the Bali trip and 2 others I hadn't even known about. $5,000 to a Porsche dealership for the down payment on the car she crashed. $8,000 to a brand consultant who turned out to be Sasha's personal shopper. $15,000 to a contractor for office renovations, which, after cross-referencing with property records, turned out to be my parents' home address. They weren't just covering for Sasha's fraud. They were actively participating in it. Malcolm had been skimming off the top of his daughter's scam to pay for country club dues, premium cigars, and a bathroom remodel. Miranda had purchased furniture and artwork. They were a closed ecosystem of greed, feeding off each other like parasites. And they were using my destroyed credit as fertilizer. I sat back in my chair as the sun started coming up. Gray light painted the city outside the window. The legal part of my brain, the part that had spent years studying case law and fraud prosecution, knew I was in trouble. If I went to the FBI right now with this evidence, the paper trail would work against me. My name was on the loans. My social security number was on the business documents. My credit had been used as collateral. A good defense attorney would argue I was the mastermind. That Malcolm and Sasha were victims of my scheme. And with their social standing, their connections, their ability to hire expensive lawyers, a jury might believe them. I needed more than evidence. I needed leverage. Something that would force them to destroy themselves. Something they would hand me willingly. I pulled up my parents' financial records, public information I could access through my work credentials. The asset column was short. Depressingly short. They had drained their retirement accounts years ago to keep funding Sasha. They had maxed out their own credit cards. Taken out personal loans. They were drowning in debt. The only thing of real value they had left was the house. A stunning 4-bedroom colonial in the historic district. Pristine landscaping. Original hardwood floors. Appraised at $1.5 million. It was their pride, their status symbol. The stage for all their performances of being the perfect family with the perfect life. And because they'd bought it 20 years ago, before the market exploded, it was almost paid off. Maybe $50,000 left on the mortgage. It was the only thing keeping them from complete financial collapse. I opened a new browser tab, my fingers moving faster now. I wasn't going to report them to the FBI. Not yet. I was going to take everything. I navigated to the Wyoming Secretary of State Business Registration portal. Wyoming is special for people who understand corporate structures. It's one of the few states that allows completely anonymous LLCs. You don't have to list the members. You don't have to list the managers. It's a black box. Perfectly legal. Perfectly untraceable. I registered a new company, Phoenix Holdings LLC. I paid the expedited filing fee with a prepaid card. Then I opened a legal document template and drafted a quitclaim deed. It's a simple instrument used to transfer property ownership quickly, usually between family members or in divorce settlements. 3 pages. Standard legal language. It stated that Malcolm and Miranda Buchanan were voluntarily transferring 100% of their property rights to Phoenix Holdings LLC for the sum of $10. 3 pieces of paper that would turn my parents into tenants in their own home. I printed the documents on professional legal paper. Made them look official, important, urgent. Then I scrolled through my contacts until I found Michelle. Michelle was a mobile notary I'd worked with on several high-end foreclosure cases. Professional, discreet, expensive, the kind of person who shows up, stamps papers, and leaves without asking questions. She answered on the second ring. Michelle, it's Flora Buchanan. I need you for a signing tonight. My father's house. 8 p.m. sharp. What kind of signing? Sensitive asset protection structure. Estate planning. I need you to verify IDs and notarize signatures. That's all. Don't engage in conversation. Don't answer questions. Just do the job and leave. There was a pause. Standard rate plus rush fee? Triple it, I said. Cash. And Michelle? Once those papers are signed and stamped, you leave immediately. No small talk. No goodbyes. You understand? Understood. I hung up and looked at the stack of papers on the desk. The evidence of their fraud in one pile. The trap in the other. They wanted me to save them. To fix the mess Sasha made. To sacrifice myself so they could keep playing pretend. I was going to give them exactly what they wanted. And it was going to cost them everything. That evening, I walked back into my parents' house at 7:55. The energy had shifted from aggressive to impatient. They weren't worried about me anymore. They were worried about the timeline. Sasha was pacing near the window, checking her phone every 30 seconds. Probably terrified that her fiancé would find out about the fraud before she could get a clean record. The wedding was in 4 weeks. Invitations already sent. Deposits paid. The Harrington family expecting perfection. My mother sat on the sofa, drinking wine like this was just another Tuesday evening. My father stood by his desk, arms crossed, watching me like I was a problem he'd already solved. I played my part perfectly. I'd spent 26 years learning how to be the person they wanted me to be. Scared. Submissive. Helpful. Weak. I hunched my shoulders. Kept my eyes down. Let my voice shake. I'll do it, I said quietly. I'll take the fall. My mother exhaled relief. Good. We knew you'd do the right thing, Flora. Sasha stopped pacing. Thank God. I was starting to think. There's a problem, I interrupted, raising my head. I widened my eyes. Made myself look panicked. My father's expression darkened. What problem? I spoke to a lawyer friend today. Just hypothetically. To understand what I'd be facing. The lie tasted sweet on my tongue. The sentencing guidelines, because the fraud amount is over $200,000, the federal prosecutors don't just look for jail time. They look for restitution. They seize assets connected to the beneficiary of the fraud. I pointed a trembling finger at Sasha, then swept my hand around the room. They trace where the money went. They know it paid for renovations here, for Mom's furniture, for Dad's club membership. If I plead guilty tomorrow, the FBI will freeze everything. They'll put liens on this house to pay back the investors. They'll seize it, Dad. They'll take it. The color drained from Malcolm's face. The house was his identity. He loved it more than his children. More than his wife. It was the physical manifestation of everything he believed he deserved. They can't do that, he said, but his voice cracked. They can, I insisted. I looked it up. It's called asset forfeiture. Once the government proves the property was purchased with proceeds from fraud, they can take it. Even if you didn't commit the crime directly. Then we'll prove the money didn't go here, my mother said. We'll show records. You can't, I said. Because Sasha did use the money here. $15,000 for the bathroom. $8,000 for the kitchen backsplash. It's in the bank statements. The contractors will testify. The FBI will find it. Silence. Sasha looked like she might throw up. My mother's wine glass was shaking in her hand. My father's jaw clenched. So what do? We hide it, I said. Tonight. Before I go to the police tomorrow. I pulled the folder from my bag. My hands were steady now, but they didn't notice. They were too focused on the solution I was offering. I had these drawn up today. It's an asset protection strategy. We transfer the house deed immediately into an anonymous holding company, Phoenix Holdings LLC. If the property isn't in your name when the investigation starts, the government can't touch it. It's a blind trust. Legally separate from you. Malcolm practically ripped the papers from my hands. He scanned them with the desperate intensity of a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. He got to the signature page and stopped. Wait. This lists you as the sole managing member. My name isn't anywhere on the ownership documents. This was it. The moment. If I flinched, if I hesitated for even a second, I'd lose everything. That's exactly why it has to be me, Dad. I made my voice crack. If your name is attached to anything at all, the FBI will find it. They'll pierce the corporate veil. They'll seize it anyway. I'm the straw man. The fall guy. I hold the asset in trust until the heat dies down, then I sign it back to you. You know I will. I always do what you ask. I always have. He stared at me, searching for deception. But he didn't see it. He couldn't see it. Because to him, I wasn't capable of deception. I wasn't smart enough. Wasn't strong enough. Wasn't worth considering as a threat. I was just the dirt they'd been burying things in for years. He laughed. Actually laughed. You're right. You're the perfect cover. Nobody would ever suspect you of anything. He grabbed his pen. Signed his name in 3 places. Miranda didn't even read it. She just signed next to him, trusting that Malcolm knew what he was doing. I texted Michelle, ready. She knocked on the door 90 seconds later. Professional. Efficient. She checked their IDs, watched them sign, stamped each page with her notary seal, and left with an envelope of cash. The whole thing took less than 5 minutes. When her car disappeared down the driveway, the room relaxed. The panic evaporated, replaced by arrogance. Well, my father said, pouring himself a scotch. You were actually useful for once, Flora. My mother nodded. Maybe you're not completely worthless after all. Sasha collapsed on the sofa, relief flooding her face. Oh my God, I can breathe again. The wedding is back on track. My mother refilled her wine glass. Looked at me with cold eyes. Now stop crying and pull yourself together. You know your place in this family. Sasha is the flower. You're the dirt. Your job is to bury yourself so she can bloom. Go to the police station first thing tomorrow morning. We have a wedding to plan. That word, dirt. It ended everything. I stopped pretending to cry. Set my phone down on my father's desk. Turned the screen toward them. The recording timer was still running. Had been running since I walked in the door. I'm not going to the police, I said. My voice was completely calm now. Steady. And neither is Sasha. They stared at the phone. Then at me. The house you just signed away? It belongs to Phoenix Holdings now. And I own Phoenix Holdings. 100%. Congratulations. You're officially my tenants. My father lunged forward, but I held up the phone. This recording captured everything. Your admission of fraud. Your plan to frame me. You signing away your house to avoid federal asset seizure. If you try to sue me to get it back, you'll have to present this case to a judge. And judges really don't like people who come to court with unclean hands. I stood up. You sue me, this recording goes to the FBI. To the Harrington family. To every investor Sasha defrauded. To the media. All of it. My father's face turned purple. You can't. I already did. You have 7 days to vacate my property. Miss that deadline, and I file eviction paperwork. The recording becomes public record. Your choice. I picked up my bag. Oh, and about my ruined credit? I'll be filing identity theft reports against all of you tomorrow. With evidence. With transaction records. With this recording as proof you've been stealing from me for 5 years. I walked to the door. Stopped. Turned back. You were right about one thing, Mom. I am the dirt. But you forgot something important about dirt. I smiled. Dirt owns the ground. I walked out of that house. My house. 3 months later, I sat in the study that now belonged to me. The mahogany desk was mine. The leather chair was mine. The original hardwood floors, the crown molding, the view of the historic district, all mine. My parents were living in a 1-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. Their retirement gone. Their credit destroyed. Their social circle evaporated the moment word got out about the fraud investigation. Sasha's wedding was canceled. The Harrington family wanted nothing to do with her once they learned about the investor fraud. She was facing multiple civil lawsuits. Last I heard, she was working retail and living with a roommate. My mother called me once. Just once. How could you do this to us? She sobbed. We're your family. I hung up. Because here's what they never understood. Family isn't DNA. It's not blood. It's not who gave birth to you. Family is who shows up. Who protects you. Who treats you like you matter. Who sees you. They taught me I was worthless. Expendable. Something to be used up and thrown away. They taught me I was dirt. But they forgot that dirt is where things grow. And what grew in me, in all those years of being invisible and underestimated, was something they never saw coming. Strength, clarity, the ability to survive anything. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their love. I had something better. I had my freedom, my home, my life, and I had learned the most valuable lesson of all. The people who try to bury you don't realize you might be a seed. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about family betrayal, finding your power, and the moment you realize you're worth more than they ever told you. Sometimes the people who bury you don't realize you're a seed.